The packed conference room felt like a courtroom as HR Director Sandra Martinez screamed about my termination for insubordination. Every single employee sat frozen, watching this public execution. I remained calm, reaching into my bag to retrieve the leather logbook I had been keeping for months. Walking directly to the forensic accountant who had mysteriously been introduced at the meeting's beginning, I placed the book in his hands without saying a word. Thomas Sterling flipped to a random page, his professional demeanor intact as he read silently. Suddenly, he stopped cold. His eyes moved slowly, deliberately, towards CEO Bradley Thompson. "Sir," he said in a voice that cut through the silence like glass, "why is your wife's Ferrari listed under server maintenance?" The room became a tomb of absolute silence. 3 months before that fateful meeting, I was just Dylan Walsh, Senior Financial Analyst at TechFlow Solutions, a mid-sized software company nestled in the heart of Austin, Texas. My days were spent reconciling expenses, reviewing vendor invoices, and ensuring every dollar flowed through proper channels. After graduating with a degree in forensic accounting from University of Texas, I had always prided myself on attention to detail that bordered on obsessive. Numbers told stories, and I knew how to read them. That Tuesday morning in September started like any other. Coffee in my favorite ceramic mug, spreadsheets open across 2 monitors, and a stack of vendor invoices waiting for review. The first red flag came disguised as routine paperwork. An invoice from Prestige Motors Austin for $89,000, categorized under server maintenance and infrastructure upgrades. I stared at the screen, certain someone had made a clerical error. Prestige Motors was the luxury dealership downtown where celebrities and oil executives bought their toys. I pulled up our legitimate IT vendor accounts. Server Tech Solutions handled our actual maintenance for a fraction of that amount monthly. Dell and HP provided our hardware. Nowhere in our vendor database did Prestige Motors appear as an approved technology supplier. The invoice bore a professional letterhead, detailed line items for specialized computing equipment, and the signature of our CFO, Patricia Wells. My stomach twisted with unease as I dug deeper. The payment had been processed 2 weeks earlier, tagged with priority processing codes that bypassed normal approval workflows. I cross-referenced the date with our IT director Jake Morrison's maintenance schedules. Nothing. No corresponding work orders, no equipment deliveries, no installation records. I decided to approach Patricia Wells directly. Her corner office overlooked the Colorado River, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Austin's downtown skyline. Patricia had been with TechFlow for 20 years, climbing from junior bookkeeper to chief financial officer. Her reputation for financial prudence was legendary among staff. "Patricia, I have a question about this Prestige Motors invoice," I said, placing the printout on her mahogany desk. Her face drained of color as she glanced at the document. "Oh, that," she stammered, not meeting my eyes. "Special server equipment. Very technical." Bradley handled the vendor selection personally. Bradley Thompson, our CEO, was a community pillar. Silver-haired and distinguished, he served on the Austin Chamber of Commerce board and chaired the local United Way campaign. His company bio highlighted his MBA from Rice University and 15 years of technology leadership. Employees respected him, clients trusted him, and the local business journal regularly featured his insights on industry trends. "Should I create a new vendor category for automotive equipment suppliers?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Patricia's hands trembled slightly as she shuffled papers on her desk. No. Keep it under IT infrastructure. Bradley prefers streamlined categorization for specialized purchases." I returned to my desk with more questions than answers. Over the next week, I methodically reviewed 6 months of expense reports, searching for patterns. What I found made my blood run cold. Monthly payments to Prestige Motors totaling $300,000. Yacht club membership fees categorized as team-building exercises. High-end restaurant charges labeled as client entertainment on dates when no client meetings appeared on company calendars. The amounts staggered me. While TechFlow had implemented healthcare cuts and postponed employee raises, someone was systematically draining company resources. I began keeping a personal logbook, photographing invoices with my phone, and documenting every suspicious transaction. If this was fraud, I needed bulletproof evidence. The breakthrough came when I connected social media to financial records. Bradley's wife, Sarah Thompson, maintained an active Instagram presence, showcasing her lifestyle to 12,000 followers. Her posts from early September showed a gleaming red Ferrari Portofino parked in their Westlake Hills driveway. The caption read, "Grateful for my amazing husband's success. New baby arrived today." The timestamp matched exactly with the $89,000 Prestige Motors payment. I stared at my computer screen, pieces of a massive puzzle clicking into place. This wasn't accounting error or vendor confusion. This was deliberate theft, orchestrated by the man we all trusted to lead our company. The weight of discovery pressed against my chest like a heavy stone. I was a single mother supporting my elderly mother's medical expenses. I needed this job desperately, but I also couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. That evening, I sat in my small apartment reviewing bank statements and expense reports spread across my kitchen table. My mother called from her assisted living facility, her voice weak from recent chemotherapy treatments. Her insurance covered basic care, but experimental treatments that might save her life cost thousands monthly. My TechFlow salary made those treatments possible. As I studied the evidence, one thought echoed in my mind. How many employees had lost benefits to fund Bradley Thompson's wife's luxury lifestyle? The moral weight of that question would keep me awake for weeks to come. The following month brought October's crisp Austin mornings and my descent into corporate investigation. Every evening after official hours, I remained at my desk, building a comprehensive picture of TechFlow's financial hemorrhaging. My personal logbook grew thicker with documented evidence, each page revealing new layers of systematic fraud. The scope expanded beyond my worst fears. 2 years of records showed sophisticated expense manipulation spanning every department. Jewelry purchases from Tiffany categorized as employee recognition awards that never reached actual employees. Vacation rental fees for Hampton's properties labeled as executive training seminars. Wine club memberships disguised as vendor relationship building. The creativity was almost impressive, if it weren't so criminal. I developed a routine. Arrive early, stay late, document everything. My small apartment became a secondary office, with copies of critical documents stored in a fireproof safe beneath my bed. Trust in corporate systems evaporated as I realized how easily the fraud had hidden in plain sight for years. IT Director Jake Morrison unknowingly provided crucial insights during casual conversations. A genuinely honest man in his 50s, Jake managed TechFlow's technology infrastructure with dedication and competence. When I casually mentioned server maintenance costs, his confusion was genuine. $89,000 for server maintenance? Jake scratched his graying beard. Dylan, our entire annual maintenance contract with Server Tech is $45,000. What vendor charged that much? I deflected his question, unwilling to implicate him in my investigation. Jake's signature never appeared on fraudulent invoices. He was simply overwhelmed with technical responsibilities and trusted financial approvals to come through proper channels. His innocence made the deception even more disturbing. Amanda Rodriguez in accounting became an unexpected ally, though she didn't realize it. A 30-something single mother with 2 young children, Amanda had worked at TechFlow for 8 years. Her cubicle sat adjacent to Patricia Wells's office, giving her inadvertent access to executive financial discussions. During coffee breaks, she shared concerning observations. "Patricia's been really stressed lately," Amanda confided one afternoon. "I hear her on phone calls that sound pretty intense. Yesterday, she was crying after Bradley left her office." "Work pressure?" I asked carefully. "Maybe. But she keeps talking about her daughter's medical bills. Apparently her insurance doesn't cover some treatment her kid needs." This information added another dimension to my understanding. Patricia Wells wasn't just a willing accomplice. She was trapped by circumstances, forced to choose between her integrity and her child's health. The realization made me sick. Bradley Thompson was manipulating vulnerable employees to facilitate his theft. My investigation expanded to public records. Texas business filings revealed a shell company called TechFlow Maintenance LLC, registered to Bradley's home address in Westlake Hills. This entity appeared as a vendor on dozens of invoices, receiving payments for vague services like infrastructure consulting and specialized equipment procurement. The company existed solely on paper, a financial phantom designed to funnel TechFlow funds directly into Bradley's personal accounts. I traced the shell company's banking information through careful cross-referencing of check numbers and deposit dates. Payments to TechFlow Maintenance, LLC, coincided perfectly with luxury purchases, appearing on Bradley's personal credit card statements, which I accessed through vendor payment confirmations that included partial account numbers. The mathematical precision was breathtaking. $800,000 over 24 months, stolen through a network of fake vendors and misclassified expenses. While TechFlow employees faced healthcare cuts and frozen salaries, Bradley Thompson was living like royalty on company funds. My mother's condition worsened in November, requiring more expensive treatments. The irony wasn't lost on me that my ability to pay for her care depended on the same job where I was uncovering massive theft. Every evening, I weighed my options: report the fraud and likely face retaliation that could cost me my income, stay silent and become complicit in ongoing theft. The decision crystallized when I discovered that employee pension contributions had been delayed for 3 months. While Bradley's shell company received 6-figure payments, retirement funds that workers had earned through decades of service were being diverted to pay for luxury cars and yacht club fees. This wasn't just corporate fraud, it was theft from people who trusted TechFlow with their futures. I made copies of everything: bank records, vendor invoices, social media screenshots, shell company filings, email confirmations. 3 complete sets went to different locations: my apartment safe, a safety deposit box at Austin Community Bank, and my attorney's office. If Bradley Thompson wanted to destroy evidence, he would have to find all 3 caches. Late at night, reviewing the evidence spread across my kitchen table, I felt the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. Dozens of families depended on TechFlow for their livelihoods: pension funds, healthcare benefits, salaries that supported mortgages and college tuitions. Bradley's theft threatened all of it. But one question haunted me above all others: how high did this corruption reach? Was Patricia Wells the only other executive involved? Or was I about to expose a conspiracy that included other senior leaders? The answer to that question would determine whether I was fighting one corrupt individual or an entire system designed to protect its own. Number. Part 4. The trap closes. 6 weeks before that November day when everything exploded, I made the fateful decision to approach HR Director Sandra Martinez with my concerns. Sandra had worked at TechFlow for 15 years, building a reputation for handling employee issues with fairness and discretion. Her office walls displayed certificates from HR professional development courses and photos from company team-building events. "Sandra, I've discovered some concerning expense irregularities that need attention," I began, placing a folder of carefully selected documents on her desk. She barely glanced at the papers. "Dylan, expense review isn't your department. Focus on your assigned reconciliation work and let management handle vendor relationships." Her dismissiveness shocked me. These weren't minor discrepancies. They were clear indicators of massive fraud. "But Sandra, we're talking about hundreds of thousands in questionable payments to vendors that don't provide legitimate services. Are you questioning Bradley's vendor selection?" Her tone sharpened. "Be very careful about making accusations against executives without solid proof." I left her office frustrated but not defeated. If internal channels were compromised, I would try external ones. TechFlow maintained an anonymous ethics hotline for reporting misconduct, prominently displayed on posters throughout the office. The system promised confidential investigation of any concerns affecting company integrity. I called the hotline that evening from my apartment, providing detailed information about the fraudulent invoices and shell company. The automated system generated a case number and promised follow-up within 72 hours. For the first time in weeks, I felt hopeful that legitimate oversight would address the situation. 3 days later, Patricia Wells requested an urgent meeting in the underground parking garage. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes and hands shaking as she lit a cigarette. "Dylan, we need to talk," she said, exhaling smoke into the fluorescent-lit concrete space. "I know you've been asking questions about certain expenses. Patricia, if there are problems with vendor payments, we should report them through proper channels." She laughed bitterly. "Proper channels? You think this company has proper channels? Bradley controls everything. The board rubber stamps his decisions. HR protects him. Even the ethics hotline reports directly to Sandra." The blood drained from my face. "What do you mean?" Your anonymous tip last week? Sandra called Bradley personally to discuss it. They know exactly who reported those concerns. My carefully constructed sense of security crumbled. The ethics system I trusted was just another layer of protection for executives willing to steal from their own company. Patricia continued, her voice breaking with emotion. My daughter Emma needs experimental leukemia treatment that costs $40,000 per month. Insurance won't cover it because it's investigational. Bradley offered to help with medical expenses through a special executive assistance fund. All I had to do was sign some vendor authorizations without asking questions. I stared at this woman I had respected for years, understanding finally that she wasn't a criminal mastermind, but a desperate mother trapped by impossible circumstances. How long has this been going on? 2 years. Started small with a few thousand here and there. But Emma's treatment got more expensive, and Bradley's demands got bigger. He threatened to eliminate my position if I didn't cooperate. 20 years with this company, Dylan. My entire pension is here. Patricia's confession revealed the true scope of Bradley's manipulation. He deliberately identified vulnerable employees and exploited their desperation to create a network of unwilling accomplices. Anyone who might discover his fraud was either bought off or threatened into silence. Patricia, we have to stop this. Employee pension funds are being delayed while he buys luxury cars. You think I don't know that? She snapped. You think I sleep well at night knowing what I've done? But what choice do I have? Let my daughter die to protect a company pension? I understood her impossible position, but I also knew the theft was escalating. Recent invoices showed larger amounts with greater frequency. Bradley was becoming bolder, more reckless. This couldn't continue indefinitely without destroying TechFlow entirely. The following week brought news of Sterling and Associates, an outside auditing firm hired for what executives called a routine financial review. Initially, I felt encouraged that external oversight might provide the accountability missing from internal systems. But my optimism vanished when I overheard Sandra's phone conversation in the empty break room. Yes, the problem employee situation should be resolved before your team arrives, Sandra was saying. We'll schedule the termination meeting for the same day as your presentation. Make sure you emphasize the financial irregularities angle. Patricia has already prepared the performance documentation. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding as the truth became clear. The audit wasn't designed to investigate fraud. It was designed to eliminate me. Bradley had orchestrated my downfall while maintaining plausible deniability. Patricia's cooperation in documenting my supposed performance issues was just another layer of coercion. That night, I sat in my car in TechFlow's parking lot, watching office lights dim as employees headed home to families and normal lives. How many of them suspected the corruption eating away at their company? How many were too afraid to speak up, even if they knew? My phone rang with a call from my mother's doctor. The experimental treatment was showing promising results, but continued therapy required consistent payment schedules. Missing even one monthly treatment could compromise her entire recovery. The timing felt like cosmic cruelty, forcing me to choose between financial security and moral obligation at the exact moment when both were most critical. I made my decision that night. If Bradley Thompson wanted to destroy me for discovering his crimes, he would have to do it in front of the entire company. And when that moment came, I would make sure everyone understood exactly who the real criminal was. 3 weeks before the confrontation that would change everything, I drove to the offices of Foster and Associates to meet with employment attorney Rebecca Foster. Her downtown Austin practice specialized in whistleblower protection cases, and her credentials included successful litigation against Fortune 500 companies. Dylan, Texas has strong whistleblower protections, but they require specific documentation and proper reporting procedures, Rebecca explained, reviewing the evidence I had compiled. What you've uncovered appears to be criminal fraud, which gives you additional federal protections under Sarbanes-Oxley. She photographed every document in my logbook, creating legally admissible copies stored in her client files. If they terminate you for reporting this fraud, we'll have grounds for wrongful termination, retaliation, and potentially defamation claims. But you need to be prepared for a difficult fight. I left Rebecca's office with mixed emotions. Legal protection existed, but using it meant destroying my career at TechFlow and possibly facing months of unemployment while litigation proceeded. The financial pressure of my mother's medical bills made that prospect terrifying. The following Monday brought unexpected developments. Sterling and Associates partner Thomas Sterling arrived at TechFlow for the supposed routine audit. I watched from my desk as this distinguished gentleman in his 60s toured the facility with Bradley and Sandra. His silver beard and wire-rimmed glasses gave him a professorial appearance, and his questions seemed genuinely focused on financial oversight. Tuesday afternoon, Thomas approached my desk unexpectedly. "Miss Walsh, I understand you handle expense reconciliation for the company. Could we discuss some vendor payment irregularities I've identified?" My heart raced. Was this part of Bradley's setup? Or had a legitimate auditor stumbled onto the same fraud I had discovered? What kind of irregularities? Large payments to vendors that don't appear to provide services matching their invoice descriptions. Prestige Motors, for example, billing for server maintenance, TechFlow Maintenance LLC, providing consulting services from a residential address. The relief was overwhelming. Thomas Sterling was conducting a real investigation, not participating in my elimination. "I've noticed some concerning patterns in those payments," I said carefully. "Would you be willing to share your observations with me privately?" he asked. "I'd like to understand the approval process for these unusual expenses." We met that evening at Mozart's Coffee Roasters on Lake Austin, far from TechFlow's corporate environment. Thomas's background included 20 years investigating corporate fraud for major accounting firms. His approach was methodical, professional, and reassuring. "Someone has been systematically stealing from TechFlow for approximately 2 years, he said after reviewing my evidence. "The shell company alone represents $800,000 in fraudulent payments. But Dylan, what triggered your company to hire my firm? I thought Bradley hired you for a routine audit." Thomas shook his head. "Sterling and Associates was hired by TechFlow's insurance carrier after they received anonymous reports of potential fraud. The insurance company has been conducting their own investigation for 6 weeks. The pieces suddenly fit together. My ethics hotline report, despite going to Sandra, had somehow triggered legitimate external oversight. The insurance company operated independently of TechFlow's internal systems, providing the accountability that corporate channels lacked. The insurance carrier's investigation identified suspicious patterns matching exactly what you've documented," Thomas continued. "They hired us to verify their findings and assess the scope of potential losses. I shared additional evidence from my logbook, including social media correlations and shell company documentation. Thomas's professional assessment confirmed my worst fears. Bradley Thompson had stolen over $1 million from TechFlow through elaborate fraud schemes. Dylan, there's something else you should know. The insurance company discovered that TechFlow's board of directors was never informed about the vendor payments you've identified. Bradley has been operating completely outside normal corporate governance. This revelation meant the board could act swiftly once they learned about the fraud. Bradley's crimes weren't protected by corporate conspiracy. They were unknown to the very people responsible for oversight. The following week, Bradley announced an all-hands meeting for important company updates. The timing seemed suspicious, occurring exactly when Thomas Sterling's investigation was reaching critical conclusions. Sandra's behavior became increasingly nervous, and Patricia looked like she hadn't slept in days. I prepared for the meeting with careful planning. Additional copies of my logbook went to Rebecca Foster's office and my safety deposit box. I arranged for a caregiver to stay with my mother in case corporate retaliation extended beyond workplace issues. Most importantly, I practiced remaining calm under pressure, knowing that any emotional outburst would undermine my credibility. The night before the meeting, I called my mother to explain the situation. Despite her weakness from treatment, her voice carried the strength that had guided me through childhood. "Dylan, honey, you're doing the right thing. I didn't raise a daughter who stays silent when people steal from honest workers. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud of you." Her words gave me the courage I needed. This wasn't just about exposing Bradley Thompson's crimes. It was about protecting every TechFlow employee whose livelihood depended on corporate integrity. Pension funds, healthcare benefits, job security all hung in the balance while one man enriched himself at everyone else's expense. I arrived at the office early the next morning, my logbook secured in my briefcase. Thomas Sterling was already in the building, preparing materials for his presentation. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either vindicate my months of investigation or destroy my career entirely. As employees filed into the main conference room, I took a seat near the back. close to the exit but with clear sightlines to the front. My hands remained steady, my breathing controlled. Everything I had worked for, everything my mother needed, everything TechFlow's honest employees deserved, would be decided in the next hour. The moment had arrived to discover whether truth and evidence could triumph over corporate corruption and executive privilege. The main conference room at TechFlow had never held so much tension. All 68 employees packed into a space designed for 40, with people standing along walls and sitting on windowsills. Bradley Thompson commanded the front of the room, his silver hair perfectly styled and his navy suit projecting executive authority. Sandra Martinez stood beside him, her face flushed with nervous energy. "Thank you all for attending this important meeting," Bradley began, his voice carrying the same confident tone I had heard in company presentations for 3 years. "Today we're addressing some serious concerns about company integrity and financial responsibility." Thomas Sterling sat at a table to the left, his materials spread neatly before him. Our eyes met briefly, and he nodded almost imperceptibly. The insurance company's investigation had reached its conclusion, and the evidence was overwhelming. "Unfortunately," Bradley continued, "we've discovered that one of our employees has been misrepresenting financial information and creating false documentation to cover serious performance deficiencies." The blood drained from my face as I realized he was going to accuse me of the very crimes he had committed. This was character assassination on a massive scale, performed in front of witnesses who would remember his version of events long after the truth emerged. Sandra stepped forward, her voice sharp and theatrical. "Dylan Walsh, you are hereby terminated for insubordination, financial misconduct, and gross violation of company trust. Security will escort you from the building immediately." Gasps echoed through the room. Employees who had worked with me for years stared in shock. Amanda Rodriguez covered her mouth with her hands. Jake Morrison looked genuinely confused. The weight of their stares pressed against me like physical force. But I had prepared for this moment. I stood slowly, my movements deliberate and calm. Instead of heading toward the door as Sandra expected, I walked directly to Thomas Sterling's table. The room watched in stunned silence as I retrieved my leather logbook from my briefcase. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room, "I believe this documentation might interest you." Bradley's face changed instantly, confidence replaced by confusion and growing alarm. "Dylan, leave immediately or we'll call security." Thomas accepted the logbook without hesitation, his professional demeanor unchanged. He opened to a random page and began reading silently, while 68 people held their collective breath. The seconds stretched like hours as his eyes moved across the carefully documented evidence. Then he stopped. His expression shifted from professional interest to serious concern as he processed what he was reading. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his eyes toward Bradley Thompson. "Sir," Thomas said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "why is your wife's Ferrari listed under server maintenance?" The room became a tomb. No one moved, no one breathed, no one spoke. Bradley's face went from confusion to pure panic as the implications hit him. Sandra's theatrical confidence evaporated. Patricia Wells, sitting in the third row, began crying quietly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Bradley stammered, his executive polish cracking. "This is clearly some kind of fabricated documentation designed to deflect attention from this employee's misconduct." Thomas flipped to another page, then another, his expression growing more serious with each entry. "Mr. Thompson, this logbook documents 2 years of payments to unauthorized vendors, including a shell company registered to your home address. The evidence correlates exactly with findings from our independent investigation." "Independent investigation?" Bradley's voice cracked. "What independent investigation?" "The one commissioned by your insurance carrier after they received reports of potential fraud," Thomas replied calmly. "Sterling and Associates was hired to verify suspicious financial patterns identified through external analysis." The revelation hit the room like an explosion. Employees began murmuring among themselves as the truth became clear. This wasn't a routine audit, and I wasn't a disgraced employee. This was a fraud investigation, and Bradley Thompson was the target. Patricia Wells suddenly stood up, her composure completely shattered. "I can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "I've been signing fake invoices for 2 years because Bradley threatened to fire me if I didn't cooperate. My daughter needed medical treatment we couldn't afford, and he promised to help if I just signed the authorizations." The room erupted in shocked conversations. Patricia's confession confirmed everything Thomas had suspected and validated every entry in my logbook. Bradley's carefully constructed facade was collapsing in real time, in front of the entire company. "Patricia, sit down and stop talking," Bradley ordered, but his authority had evaporated. She continued, speaking through her tears. "Techflow Maintenance LLC is his shell company. The yacht club fees, the jewelry purchases, the restaurant bills, all of it. He made me categorize everything as business expenses. Dylan found out, and that's why you're trying to fire her." Thomas Sterling closed my logbook and reached for his phone. "Mr. Thompson, I need to inform you that Sterling and Associates has completed our investigation on behalf of Techflow's insurance carrier. We have documented evidence of approximately $1.2 million in fraudulent expenses processed through your authorization over the past 24 months. Bradley made a desperate attempt to regain control. "This is all speculation and fabrication. I won't tolerate these accusations in my own company." "Your company?" Thomas replied. "Mr. Thompson, the board of directors has been briefed on our preliminary findings. They were unaware of any payments to Prestige Motors, Techflow Maintenance LLC, or the other vendors identified in this investigation. They've authorized me to recommend immediate suspension pending criminal investigation." The words "criminal investigation" sent shockwaves through the room. This wasn't just corporate misconduct. These were felony charges that would destroy Bradley's life completely. Amanda Rodriguez spoke up from her seat near the wall. "Is it true that pension contributions were delayed to cover these fake expenses?" Thomas nodded gravely. Employee benefit delays coincided directly with large payments to unauthorized vendors. Workers' retirement funds were essentially stolen to pay for luxury purchases. The anger in the room was palpable now. These weren't abstract financial irregularities. They were direct attacks on every employee's financial security. People who had trusted Bradley with their careers and retirement plans were learning he had betrayed them for personal gain. Jake Morrison stood up, his face red with fury. "Bradley, I signed off on server maintenance requests that you told me were critical for company operations. You made me an accomplice in your theft." "You're all out of line," Bradley shouted, but his voice carried desperation instead of authority. "I built this company. I made it successful. Everything I did was for Techflow's benefit." Thomas Sterling's expression remained professionally neutral, but his words were devastating. "Mr. Thompson, based on documented evidence and witness testimony, I'm obligated to report these findings to law enforcement. The Travis County District Attorney's Office has been briefed on this investigation." The final blow came when Sandra's phone rang loudly in the silent room. She answered with trembling hands, listened briefly, then looked at Bradley with terror in her eyes. "Bradley, that was building security. There are police officers in the lobby asking to speak with you." The room erupted in chaos as employees realized they were witnessing a real-time arrest. Bradley Thompson, the man they had trusted and respected, was about to be led away in handcuffs for stealing from his own company. I remained standing beside Thomas Sterling's table, my logbook in his hands, finally vindicated after months of investigation and preparation. The truth had emerged exactly as I had documented it, and justice was about to be served. The police officers who entered Techflow's conference room moved with professional efficiency that cut through the chaos like a sharp knife. Detective Maria Santos of the Travis County Sheriff's Economic Crimes Unit led the team, her badge clearly visible as she approached Bradley Thompson. "Mr. Thompson, you need to come with us for questioning regarding allegations of embezzlement and corporate fraud," she announced in a voice that brooked no argument. Bradley's face had turned ashen gray, all pretense of executive authority completely stripped away. "This is harassment. I demand to speak with my attorney immediately." "You can call your attorney from the station," Detective Santos replied. "Right now, you're under arrest for suspicion of embezzlement, wire fraud, and theft of employee pension funds." The reading of Miranda rights in that corporate conference room created a surreal scene that none of us would ever forget. Employees who had arrived expecting routine company updates were witnessing their CEO's arrest for stealing over $1 million from the company they all depended on for their livelihoods. As officers escorted Bradley from the building, Thomas Sterling addressed the stunned workforce. "Ladies and gentlemen, I understand this is shocking and disturbing. Sterling and Associates will be working with law enforcement and TechFlow's board of directors to ensure full recovery of stolen funds and protection of employee benefits. The immediate aftermath unfolded rapidly. Within 30 minutes of Bradley's arrest, Sarah Thompson arrived at the office in her red Ferrari, demanding answers about ridiculous accusations against her husband. Her social media lifestyle was about to collide brutally with financial reality. "Where is Bradley?" she demanded of Sandra, her designer sunglasses failing to hide the panic in her eyes. "Someone called saying he was arrested." "That's impossible. He would never do anything illegal." Thomas Sterling approached Sarah with the same professional courtesy he showed everyone. "Mrs. Thompson, your husband is being questioned about unauthorized use of corporate funds for personal expenses, including the vehicle you're driving." "This Ferrari was a legitimate business purchase," Sarah protested. Bradley explained that it was for client entertainment and company image. "Ma'am, the invoice for this vehicle was categorized as server maintenance equipment. Our investigation shows it was purchased with funds diverted from employee benefit contributions." The color drained from Sarah's face as the implications became clear. Her luxury lifestyle, documented meticulously on social media, was evidence of systematic theft from working families. The yacht club memberships, jewelry, vacation properties, all of it would be subject to asset forfeiture proceedings. Local news media arrived within hours, having been alerted by law enforcement about the arrest of a prominent Austin business leader. Channel 7's investigative reporter Jennifer Walsh interviewed employees as they left the building. "Workers here are describing their CEO as someone they trusted completely," Jennifer reported. Dylan Walsh, a financial analyst whose investigation led to these charges, has become something of a hero to employees who feared for their jobs and pensions. The story dominated Austin business news for weeks. Headlines read, "Local CEO arrested for $1 million embezzlement and TechFlow employees discover massive corporate fraud." My photograph appeared in the Austin American-Statesman alongside articles about whistleblower courage and corporate accountability. Sterling and Associates' comprehensive audit revealed the full scope of Bradley's crimes. The shell company, TechFlow Maintenance LLC, had received payments totaling $800,000 over 2 years. Additional fraudulent expenses through misclassified vendor invoices added another $400,000. Employee pension contributions delayed, while luxury purchases were made, created additional criminal liability. TechFlow's board of directors held an emergency meeting 3 days after Bradley's arrest. Board chairman William Hughes addressed employees in the same conference room where the scandal had exploded. "The board was completely unaware of Mr. Thompson's unauthorized activities," Hughes announced. "We've terminated him immediately and are cooperating fully with law enforcement. All stolen funds will be recovered and returned to company accounts." My professional vindication came swiftly. The board offered me Patricia Wells's position as chief financial officer, recognizing that my investigation had saved TechFlow from complete financial collapse. The salary increase meant I could afford the best medical care for my mother without worrying about monthly expenses. Patricia Wells received immunity from prosecution in exchange for her complete cooperation with investigators. The board recognized her impossible position as a mother facing her child's life-threatening illness and Bradley's manipulation of her desperation. She remained with TechFlow as finance director under my supervision, rebuilding trust through transparency and accountability. Thomas Sterling's testimony before the Travis County grand jury proved devastating for Bradley's defense. My logbook, entered as evidence, provided irrefutable documentation of every fraudulent transaction. The precision of my records and correlation with external evidence made denial impossible. The most shocking revelation came during the investigation's expansion. Bradley had been planning to declare TechFlow bankrupt and flee to the Cayman Islands with offshore accounts funded by his embezzlement. His wife's social media posts had inadvertently documented his timeline, showing luxury purchases accelerating as he prepared for permanent exile. Sarah Thompson's Instagram account became prosecution evidence, with each post of expensive jewelry or exotic vacations linked to specific fraudulent invoices. Her carefree documentation of their luxury lifestyle provided a public record of stolen funds that no defense attorney could explain away. The ripple effects extended throughout Austin's business community. Other companies began conducting internal audits to identify similar vulnerabilities. The Travis County District Attorney's Office established a corporate fraud task force specifically focused on executive embezzlement cases. Amanda Rodriguez received recognition for her courage in speaking up during the confrontation. Her willingness to corroborate Patricia's confession provided additional evidence that strengthened the prosecution's case. The board promoted her to accounting supervisor with a significant salary increase. Jake Morrison's technical expertise proved crucial in documenting the false server maintenance claims. His detailed analysis showed that no legitimate IT equipment had been purchased from any of the fraudulent vendors, destroying Bradley's defense that the expenses were business-related. Employee morale, initially shattered by the revelation of systematic theft, gradually recovered as the scope of recovery efforts became clear. Delayed pension contributions were restored with interest. Healthcare benefits improved as fraudulent expenses stopped draining company resources. The annual employee profit-sharing program returned for the first time in 3 years. 6 months after Bradley's arrest, TechFlow's financial position had stabilized completely. Stock price, initially devastated by the fraud scandal, recovered to pre-scandal levels as investor confidence returned. The company's reputation for ethical business practices attracted new clients who valued integrity and transparency. My relationship with coworker David Chen, which had been developing before the scandal broke, deepened into genuine partnership built on shared values and mutual respect. His support during the investigation's most difficult moments showed me the kind of person I wanted in my life permanently. The investigation's conclusion came with Bradley Thompson's guilty plea to federal charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and theft of employee benefits. Facing overwhelming evidence and potential decades in prison, he accepted a plea agreement requiring full restitution and cooperation with ongoing investigations. His downfall was complete and irreversible, the result of greed, arrogance, and the fundamental belief that his position protected him from accountability. The man who had commanded respect throughout Austin's business community became a cautionary tale about power without oversight and the courage required to expose corruption. The Travis County Courthouse stood majestically under October's clear blue sky as I walked up its granite steps for Bradley Thompson's sentencing hearing. 6 months had passed since that explosive all-hands meeting, 6 months of investigations, legal proceedings, and personal transformation that had changed my life completely. Judge Margaret Foster's courtroom was packed with TechFlow employees, local media, and federal prosecutors who had built an airtight case against our former CEO. Bradley sat at the defendant's table in an Orange County jail jumpsuit, a dramatic contrast to the expensive suits he once wore to intimidate subordinates. Federal prosecutor David Martinez presented the government's case with methodical precision. Your Honor, Mr. Thompson systematically stole $1.2 million from TechFlow Solutions and its employees over 24 months. He exploited vulnerable subordinates, delayed pension contributions, and planned to flee the country with stolen funds hidden in offshore accounts. My testimony as the primary witness lasted 2 hours, walking through every entry in my logbook with detailed explanations of the evidence I had gathered. Bradley's defense attorney tried desperately to portray me as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, but the financial evidence was overwhelming. Miss Walsh's investigation prevented TechFlow's complete collapse, Judge Foster noted during her remarks. Her courage in exposing this fraud protected dozens of families who depended on this company for their livelihoods. The sentence exceeded our most optimistic expectations. 5 years in federal prison, full restitution of stolen funds, and permanent prohibition from serving as a corporate officer. Bradley's empire, built on theft and deception, crumbled completely in that austere courtroom. Sarah Thompson faced her own legal consequences through civil asset forfeiture proceedings. The red Ferrari, yacht club memberships, jewelry collection, and vacation properties all reverted to TechFlow for liquidation. Her social media accounts, once showcasing luxury lifestyle, became prosecution evidence of stolen funds. TechFlow's recovery exceeded everyone's expectations. As chief financial officer, I implemented comprehensive financial controls and transparency measures that became models for other companies. Every expense required multiple authorizations, vendor relationships underwent annual audits, and employee reporting systems protected whistleblowers from retaliation. The company's board of directors established the Dylan Walsh Ethics Award, recognizing employees who demonstrate courage in protecting corporate integrity. The first recipient was Amanda Rodriguez, whose willingness to speak truthfully during the crisis helped expose the full scope of Bradley's crimes. Patricia Wells's rehabilitation proved one of the most satisfying outcomes. Her daughter Emma's leukemia treatment, now funded through legitimate medical assistance programs, showed dramatic improvement. Patricia's expertise and dedication, freed from Bradley's manipulation, made her an invaluable partner in rebuilding TechFlow's financial systems. My mother's medical condition stabilized beautifully with consistent treatment now easily affordable through my increased salary. The experimental therapy that had seemed financially impossible 8 months earlier became routine care supported by excellent insurance benefits. Thomas Sterling's professional assessment of my investigative work opened new career opportunities throughout Austin's business community. 3 headhunters contacted me about CFO positions with larger companies, but I chose to remain at TechFlow, where my work could continue protecting honest employees from executive abuse. The personal growth I experienced through this ordeal exceeded any professional advancement. Standing up to corruption despite personal risk taught me that integrity isn't optional when other people's livelihoods are at stake. My mother's pride in my courage became a source of strength that sustained me through the most difficult moments. David Chen's marriage proposal came 6 months after the trial concluded, in the same coffee shop where I had first met with Thomas Sterling to discuss the investigation. His respect for my principles and his support during the crisis created a foundation for partnership based on shared values rather than mere attraction. Jake Morrison received recognition from TechFlow's board for his technical expertise in documenting the server maintenance fraud. His detailed analysis proved that no legitimate IT equipment had ever been purchased from Bradley's fake vendors, eliminating any possible defense claim. The ripple effects throughout Austin's business community continue expanding. The Travis County District Attorney's Economic Crimes Unit established new protocols for investigating corporate fraud, using my case as a template for recognizing and documenting executive embezzlement. Local universities now include TechFlow's scandal in their business ethics curricula, teaching students how systematic fraud develops and how employee courage can prevent corporate collapse. My guest lectures at University of Texas emphasize the importance of documentation and the reality that exposing corruption often requires personal sacrifice. TechFlow's financial position today exceeds pre-scandal performance levels. Employee satisfaction surveys show record-high scores for trust in management and confidence in company future. The transparency measures implemented after Bradley's downfall created a corporate culture that attracts top talent and premium clients. Annual employee profit sharing resumed with record distributions, funded by operational efficiencies and elimination of fraudulent expenses. Healthcare benefits improved dramatically once stolen funds stopped subsidizing executive luxury. Pension contributions now exceed required minimums, providing additional security for retirement planning. The Austin Chamber of Commerce invited me to speak at their annual ethics summit, sharing lessons learned from exposing corporate fraud. Business leaders throughout Central Texas now implement enhanced oversight systems designed to prevent executive abuse of financial authority. My professional reputation within Austin's business community reflects the principle that protecting employee interests ultimately protects company interests. Standing up to corruption wasn't just morally right, it was essential for TechFlow's survival and future success. The justice system's response to Bradley's crime sent clear messages throughout corporate America. Executive position doesn't provide immunity from criminal prosecution. Employee pension funds aren't personal piggy banks for luxury purchases. Systematic fraud will face systematic investigation and prosecution. This experience taught me that ordinary people possess extraordinary power to demand accountability from those entrusted with authority. My background wasn't special, my resources weren't unlimited, and my position wasn't powerful. But my willingness to document truth and demand justice proved stronger than Bradley's money, connections, and corporate influence. Today, TechFlow Solutions stands as proof that companies can recover from even devastating fraud scandals when honest employees refuse to accept corruption as inevitable. Our story demonstrates that individual courage can protect collective interests, and that justice remains possible when people choose integrity over personal safety. Have you ever witnessed workplace corruption that made you question whether speaking up was worth the risk? I've learned that staying silent protects wrongdoers while honest employees suffer the consequences. Sometimes the most important business decision isn't about profit margins or market strategy, but whether we'll stand up for what's right when it matters most. Thank you for following my story of discovering that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the determination to protect others despite that fear. I hope my experience encourages you to trust your instincts, Document your observations. And remember that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they refuse to accept injustice. If this story resonated with you, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding courage in difficult situations, and share it with anyone who might be facing their own workplace challenges. Your support helps these important stories reach people who need to hear them most.